Doug Collins, former Congressman of Georgia, a U.S. Air Force colonel in the reserves, and host, of course, of the Doug Collins podcast. Doug, great to see you. So, Mike Johnson, will it be Speaker Mike Johnson if you had to make your bet?
Yes, it is over. This 22-day, very frustrating nightmare is now coming to a close. And I think Mike's is going to be a great pick. He's got a lot of learning curve. No, there shouldn't be, expectations beyond get in there and do the job. And I think Mike's the right person to do that.
All right. So I want to ask you, obviously, Democrats have, capitalized on some of this chaos in the GOP. And, there's been a lot of tension. Even, some of the folks and congressmen, have shared what those closed door meetings were like. Burlington says it was tense and aggressive. Do you think, moving forward, this will all just be a blip, albeit very historic? Do you think that they can put aside some of the bitterness, maybe towards some of the eight who ousted Kevin McCarthy and move forward? Or do you think there will still be some tensions lingering about what has happened?
Let's be honest; these are people too. So many times we try to make congressmen and senators and elected officials, governors, presidents, not real people. Well, they're real people, and yes, this will linger. There will be some resentment that will be found in different ways for people that have been frustrated over the past few weeks. But in looking at this, the real test of this is not going to necessarily be, although it's important, and just a little bit electing Mike Johnson Speaker, but then actually getting to the legislative agenda. What will happen on this first bill on appropriation bill? How do we handle the CR, deadline coming up on November 17th? These are going to be the tale of whether there's lingering problems in the conference that need to be addressed. And I think that's where you're going to have to look.
How much of a factor do you think Trump played into this? Emmer had it yesterday. Trump put out a pretty scathing truth on it today. Much different tone with Mike Johnson. Do you think that played into some of the folks there and the votes that went out last night in secret ballot?
Some. I think it always plays a little bit, but also Trump, the Emmer issue was an issue before Emmer was named designate. So that was not a surprise in many ways for many that have been following this closely. So again, maybe some of that happened, but there was always going to be a number that was going to be against Emmer. Unfortunately, in this process, that's the way we saw it play out for over 3 weeks. Johnson just he's not been around long enough, not been through the leadership battles that many of the others have that had to built up contingents that said we're not going to vote for X because of what happened in the past. And I've said this before, and this is something that's not talked about enough. This is a 13-year process. This has been a 13-year kettle that has been brewing in the Republican conference over many years, dealing with different issues and different people that we have now seen play out in the last 3 weeks.
Well, point it out there. Finally, you were once the Jim Jordan of Congress. You sat in that, chair of judiciary. Do you think Jim Jordan, we're looking forward, obviously it looks like Mike's got it, but would Jim Jordan have been a great speaker?
Jim would have been fine. Jim would have done good. The problem is that, again, you've got to be elected by your constituency at the moment. The constituency at the moment was the 220-something members of the House Republican Conference, and Jim did not have, from years of experience, it seems like, could not win over those votes. Mike Johnson is as conservative as anybody in Congress. Mike Johnson is going to give leadership. Remember, leadership is not always about who's on the camera the most or who's giving the best sound bites. It's about who can get actually stuff done. That's what I encourage my colleagues to do now. They've had enough of this for 3 weeks. It's now to dig in, settle the issues, find 217 to pass things or 218 to pass things, and get something done.
We're hearing 216 now is the magic number. So we'll watch it all unfold. Yes. Doug Collins, always great to see you, sir. Make sure you check out the Doug Collins podcast, everybody. And we'll see you back here soon, of course.
Sounds good. Thanks a bunch.
Thank you. All right. We're watching the House floor very closely. We'll be keeping an eye on that and also an eye on President Biden welcoming the Prime Minister of Australia. But he'll be holding a joint press conference where he's expected to take questions about Israel. We have live reports from the war region as well ahead for you today on Newsline. Don't go anywhere.